are back with Financial Renaissance with the M's. We are going to be discussing my top 5 news stories and my Emma Knows Money. I'm actually feeling generous today. I'm going to drop some cool knowledge on you. But first, I want to talk to you about some numbers that I think you should know about. Some numbers that I've seen recently were that the median home prices of San Francisco homes is about $830,000. Okay, now that is actually a tenth of a percent down from last year. So I don't know how they're living on the West Coast, especially up in that Silicon Valley area. It is brutal. $830,000 is the median home price. Now, as far as our tax return, so here's some numbers, and let me make sure I get this right. In 2017, 34 million tax filers claimed a mortgage deduction. And now, after the new tax laws, there were only 14 million who were able to claim a mortgage interest deduction on their Schedule A. So that is that's almost half. So almost half the people who used to claim a mortgage deduction no longer can claim a mortgage deduction. Another number, and if you know anyone still working in retail, okay, I want you to listen to this number and I want you to repeat this to them. As of May 17th, 2019, 6,400 retail stores have gone out of business. So we're hitting a new high. They're estimating that there are going to be over 8,000 retail store closures this year. So if you know someone who is still in retail, tell them that they need to find another avenue of earning money. They need to get trained. They need to go back to school. There are free courses on Coursera that they can take, but don't get caught flat-footed. Now, in the South right now, there is a lot of tension about this abortion ban. And I mentioned that there's a reason for it, whatever. But some of it has to do with our nation's fertility rate. Our nation's fertility rate is at the lowest it's been. They started tracking, I guess, the number of births per 1,000 women back in the early 1900s. And we are in 2018, we had the lowest birth rate on record. So as a country, we need to continue to populate, but we also need to make sure that we can afford to take care of these kids because, again, each child is going to cost somewhere between $250,000 to $500,000 to raise them. So make sure people's income is keeping up with inflation. If their income is keeping up with inflation, then maybe they'll be more apt to think about having kids. Because again, I don't want to bring a kid into the world if I can't afford them. Now, Jay-Z, which we just found out was a billionaire on his own, he just invested about $1 million into a black-owned vegan cookie company. Both him and his wife have been pushing being vegan. My wife and I are thinking about it. I don't know how serious we're going to take it, but we're like half vegan. We're vegan on Monday, Wednesdays, and I think Fridays or something like that. Another number that we should be paying attention to, which also has to do with the recession, is June of 2019, this month, is the 120th consecutive month of the economic expansion. And remember, everything goes in cycles. The economy is in cycles. So after an expansion, we go into a contraction. When we go into a contraction, it's usually a recession. Companies start laying people off. Make sure you have your cash. The Federal Reserve Board is short-staffed. They're supposed to have 7 members, and I believe they only have 5. So we're waiting for the Senate to appoint 2 more people onto that board. And listen, we need to have the Board of Governors or the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors, they need to be whole. Because if we hit a recession, the Federal Reserve Board, the Federal Reserve, they're the ones who decide what to do from an economic policy standpoint. So we need to make sure we have all butts in seats so that they are planning on what to do now instead of waiting until after the crisis happens. This month, the month of June, is usually the month that we know how well we're doing in home sales. The most homes are sold in the month of June. So in the weeks coming, we'll look back at this month to see how well we did, and that's also going to be an indicator of where we stand. The United States, now let's talk about reparations for a second. The United States covers 1,997 billion, with a B, acres of land in the lower 48, continuous. And that includes state and federally owned land that we own as well. And there are 122 million households. Now, if you were to take that one billion acres and divide it amongst all the homeowners, each homeowner would be entitled to about 16.3 acres of land. If you want to figure out how to do the math on reparations, do the math with some of these numbers. That would make me feel good. All right. So I believe it was last Thursday, they passed a Secure Act, Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act of 2019. That was a mouthful, also known as the Secure Act. They're trying to put provisions in to help retirees or workers save for retirement. What they're doing is they're going to increase the minimum distribution age from 70 and a half to 72. What does that mean? If you have an IRA or a 401k, and let's say you're still working, but you turn 70 and a half, the federal government makes you start taking distributions based on when they think you're going to die. So it's called minimum required distribution. So they are looking at doing something with that. When we come back on Financial Renaissance with the M's, I'm going to be going into my top five news stories for the week, and then Emma Knows Money.